Hello and welcome to The Dream Dynamics. Today we are presenting the case for cinematic universes. Both of us have found an argument for and an argument against, and we will pit them both against each other before it will be up to you, the viewers, to decide what should the future of cinematic universes look like. Are they working or are they falling apart? So, where shall we begin?
I want to start. We'll start positively, I think. I want to start positively with Universal's Fast and Furious cinematic universe. And yes, it is a cinematic universe because this film franchise is nuts. Started back in 2003. It's made 7 billion worldwide.
That's a big number.
It's a lot for a movie which most people who haven't really watched it would just go, it's cars racing about.
It is cars racing about.
It's not. Well, okay, we'll get into
There's more,
it.
but it is cars racing about. Don't take it away from it.
This cinematic universe has 10 currently in its main line, 1 spin-off with Hobbs and Shaw, 1 animated series which went for 6 seasons, which is nuts, and I didn't know about until I started researching this. 2 short films which were also brought out around it. And in the future, it's got another main title coming out, as well as 3 new spin-offs. So it is well and truly huge.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, in terms of the muscles, in terms of the characters, in terms of the family, this franchise, this cinematic universe is massive. And for me, one of the reasons why this works so well is because they follow what the fans want. They don't feel like their movies have to always be one certain way. You watch the first, I've got it listed down here, and the way I've described this is basically the filmmakers decide they want to play Wordle with their audience, where basically they turn around and go, we're going to try this now, and it's like, oh, people liked it, but not too much, no, so we're going to try this, until finally they've gone, all right, this is what we like. This is what the audience likes. This is what makes in the money, and this is what we're going to stick with. And it makes sense by the end of it. So you got the first couple of movies, which are very much undercover cop movies. You then go to Tokyo Drift, which is pretty visuals, driving fast cars, a bit of a story about sort of a son trying to find things and stuff. And then they go back in time until the 7th movie. But then you get an Unwilling Partners movie. Then you get a heist movie. You get an amnesty offer to take down a mercenary, search and kill kind of movie. And then the last 4 have been spy movies. And because they kind of realised, okay, the mercenary thing kind of worked. We're going to try and do a bit more action in the cars, a bit more fighting.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do the sort of espionage and the secrecy, and it really works. But you've got characters in it who, you think secrecy, you think Jason Bourne, you think James Bond, and basically they've gone, right, we're going to take this British sort of concept of James Bond and spy thrillers, and we're going to add fast cars and big muscle men. And they've just basically made what I would consider as what the G.I. Joe movies should have been. Which is just playing to what the audience loves. And I think that's where, for a cinematic universe, you're able to tell these different stories. You're able to go, okay, we've got a sandbox of characters to pick from. Your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons, your Ludacris, your Vin Diesels, your Paul Walkers, and we're just going to go, let's do different things with them. But then they've found their formula, they've found what they liked the most, and they've gone, right, we're going to stick with this. And they've made a load of money from doing it. And I think it'd be very difficult to argue that it's not been a huge success, whether you like it or not, whether you think that realistically this is your cup of tea or whether it should be made or not. It has made a ridiculous fortune for these people.
Made a lot of money.
Like 7 billion's nuts for what is essentially cars going fast and blowing up. And I think that, in my books, captures what is good about cinematic universes.
Yes.
Is it's different directors, different producers. Yeah, you got Vin Diesel, who's a constant throughout it. But, you get the spin-offs then where people want to go doing different things. You got animated TV that people want to go, oh, we want to play with this in the universe. but all sticks to the same ethos. It all sticks to the same thought process of what people love about this. And I think that's where it really works well. And that's where I think a lot of other places fall down.
Yeah.
But I think as well, one thing I want to highlight about this is they never intended for this to be what it is. And
That's true.
I don't
That's true.
think when they came in and even making 7, 8, 9 really thought, well, maybe when they got to 9 because they were sort of playing with what the next idea would be by the time they were making it. But I think that's the point. They were only forward planning in the later stages when they were making the first, second, third. That's why you don't get until the timeline gets to after Tokyo Drift, which is the third movie, in the 7th movie. They weren't planning these movies 4 or 5 times ahead. They were just going, right, what do we want to do next? And I think that's what really worked. And what I'll go on to talk about later is sometimes the forward planning stifles you from the start. And I think that's where this went really well. So that's my case.
I like it. I think it is left field of what I was thinking, but I don't think that's wrong. I think it is a very good example of a franchise that, for what you said, it does different things with different directors. I don't feel there's a different vibe particularly, but I do feel like they know what the audience wants and they give it to them every time in a way that doesn't detract from what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't try and go, let's reinvent the wheel here, let's do an avant-garde Fast and Furious. They're all just Fast and Furious films.
Yeah.
And sometimes they hit and they're just fantastic, and sometimes they're not as good, but it is very, very clear that the core audience who likes these films likes all of them because they keep making them. I want to just touch on something that I am using as a factor in my head, is the finances of the franchise.
Yeah.
So, the Fast and Furious franchise has made $7.46 billion, $7.476 billion.
Yeah.
That is across several films.
It's right, they've got 10 main films, yeah.
Yeah, but the budget of all of that was 1.7 just over billion.
Well, this is what I was...
For bang for your buck,
Yeah.
for the amount you got back, obviously that is a huge investment, but the film started off on very small budgets, made a lot of money, and they naturally grew. I'm going somewhere with that later.
Yeah.
But they earned the bigger budgets, and the bigger budgets paid off in dividends and dividends.
And I think it's a theme that we'll see across all of our arguments here, is that financial side of it. As you were saying, the first Fast and Furious had a budget of 38 million, which for a first movie is quite big, especially back in, 2003.
It's a big mid-range
But
movie.
it made 207 million.
Yes.
And I think that's where you think of it. You say the whole 1.7 billion was what they spent, and 7.2 was what they made.
7.4.
The ratios are in the right direction. A lot of the movies that we'll talk about in the sort of more negative side of things very much feel half and half. You get half the budget was what they put forward as what they spent, and then they only made double it, which sounds like a lot, but for Hollywood, especially when you're building on these universes, you've got to think about it. They need to make even more money so then they can invest more money into the next film and more money into the next film. They've got to constantly build profit rather than basically spend what they get to make the next one and hope it makes even more.
Now, here's where I'd counter.
Okay?
They're falling off. The Fast and Furious franchise peaked, in my view, well, I say in my view, financially peaked, critically peaked with Furious 7.
Yeah.
Which was the last one featuring the late Paul Walker.
But I think that's most likely because of the fact that everyone went to go see it because of the Paul Walker's death.
And then 8 fell off a bit, but now the spin-off and 9 and 10 have fallen off. 9, you could give credit to COVID and say that's what damaged it, but 10... has fallen off significantly.
Well, yeah.
I wonder if this is a franchise that people love to watch at the cinema, but as people switch away from cinemas, does that detract from it? do you want to go and watch to the cinema and pay to watch hours of car smashy man smashy, or would you rather
Marvel,
watch something with a bit more? I don't want to say craft because they are well crafted films.
Yeah.
But with a bit more about it than just mindless entertainment. If you want mindless entertainment, switch your phone on and stare at that. Which, if you go back to the 2015, that's a decade ago, and phones were in a very, very different place from where they are now. Netflix was in a very different place.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Well, Disney Plus wasn't even out yet, and you have a very different landscape that Fast and Furious is now trying to navigate.
Yeah, and I do think that is well shown in the upcoming slate that I was talking about. So you have 3 spin-off movies that are coming out because maybe people are craving that something different. Hobbs and Shaw did fairly well, but people were very much a bit wary about it because it was kind of just more of the same, just with different characters. But with Fast X, for example, as you were saying, they had a budget of 378 million, a substantial amount. It's 10 times the amount more than the original had.
Yeah.
But only made 715, which again sounds like a lot, but is less than double. Yeah. Which is what we were talking about earlier, is these ratios when they start getting into the sort of like, well, you're making less than double what you spend, and that's not including marketing. We know Hollywood doesn't include marketing in the budgets, which is usually for big films around 200 million.
Yeah.
So that's even less money, and that's when you go, oh gosh, we're now questioning it, which is why I think only one main title's been announced that they're making, and there's high levels of rumours it's going to be the last one.
Yeah, is this a franchise that they have milked for all they can get, and is this the end of the line? And I guess that poses a different question, which we'll come on to later again, but should franchises end?
Yes.
Is there a finite point of storytelling, or are these universes something that we can create that lasts forever?
I think universes can, if it's the right universe. And I think that goes into a different question, which we might have to get into at a different time, because both of us are massive lovers of Marvel and massive lovers of Star Wars for myself, and I think there is a massive amount of scope in those universes. But yes, a universe like this, maybe Mission Impossible, that kind of thing, maybe there is only a finite amount of storytelling that can happen.
And as your actors age and characters develop and grow, and in Fast and Furious' case, a secondary lead passes away in the real world and therefore can't take part in the films anymore. They've navigated the franchise through that, but Vin Diesel ain't gonna live forever, touch wood, and at some point will be too old to be driving around cars in this way. And how do you definitely a question for different days. How do you pass the baton of a franchise? How do you pass that idea down onto someone else? And how has that been done successfully? And I think there are some interesting cases. But that's not what we're talking about. Today we're talking about, does the universe building model work? And I think this is a case where, in my view, it's 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It's not working. It's financially incredibly successful. Creativity-wise, the main bulk of this franchise is Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
And when you take him out, you just said you hadn't heard of the TV show. I don't think the success is quite there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting case, nonetheless. And I would now like to present my case for, and I would like to talk about a controversial 4, but I know some people will go, well, that's terrible. Well, here, listen up. Open your ears as I explain why Sony's Spider-Man universe is actually really good.
I am looking forward to this.
Okay. Sony has a very complicated relationship with Marvel. They own part of the character of Spider-Man, and that was a deal made when Marvel was on its knees in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was selling off properties as fast as you can. That is why Fox owned the film rights for X-Men and Fantastic Four and other bits and bobs, and that is why Sony has the right to Spider-Man. But they have more than just the character. They have more than just the film rights. They have part of the character. They own that. Details are scarce, but it is clear that they have a much stronger relationship than Fox ever did. Yeah. Now, In 2015, it was announced that Spider-Man would be swinging into the Marvel Cinematic Universe after a failed attempt at rebooting the franchise with Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I'm an Amazing Spider-Man 2 truther, and I think it's great. But that's an argument for another day. The franchise was not as successful as they wanted it to be. Marvel was at the top of its game, and so they threw Spider-Man at Kevin Feige and said, make me money. That locked away the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man into the MCU, played by Tom Holland, which has been incredibly successful, billion-dollar films on its own. And Sony went, yeah, but I've got some rights over here that I want to use. And some madman, well, it's not a madman, Amy Pascal, who is in charge of huge, has a large producing role at Sony, and was sort of the person behind these Spider-Man films, was involved in the Marvel deal, is very involved in the MCU projects, and also spearheads this side of things. So, Sony announced Venom, a film which came out in 2018, 2 years after Spider-Man had appeared in the MCU, and no one had any idea what to expect.
I remember expecting so much different to what we got.
Yeah. Yeah. They then continued to announce films. We got a Venom sequel. We got Morbius. We got Madam Web. We got a third Venom film. And we also have an upcoming Kraven the Hunter film. Now, I know what you're hearing. You're thinking, viewers.
Hang on. Are we talking about the good side of universe building here?
I know what you're thinking, viewers. They're all terrible. And you might well be right. But did you know that they are ridiculously financially sound? And I will give you one example. The first example. The example that got us in this ruddy spider mess. Venom had a budget of 100-ish, 110, 16 million.
That's low.
It's very low in the age of Marvel $200 million franchise filmmaking. That film made $856 million worldwide.
This is our fault. We're the villains. There's an audience.
So
we're
many
the villains.
people went to watch Venom that Sony went, we've done it. And then they carried on doing it to very mixed success. Venom Let There Be Carnage was less successful than the first one, although this came out in 2021. Pandemic effect was still around. Morbius came out and made about double its budget. The favourite fact, and I just want to spread this word as much as possible, was that the internet convinced Sony to re-release Morbius because Morbius was a meme and it was really popular online, and then people were saying re-release Morbius, and then they did re-release Morbius and it made so little money. It was funny. Anyway, and then they made this film called Madam Web. Now, if you don't know what Madam Web is, she's a woman who sees spider universes and she lives on a web and she's old, okay? And they turned that into some weird noughties, female-led action thing. It did not make very much money. It made just about 20 million more than the budget. And given they don't even usually get half of the money from the box office, it did bad.
Yeah.
But then Venom The Last Dance came out on a slightly bigger budget again and made slightly less than Venom Let There Be Carnage. It well over doubled the budget, well over tripled the budget. It was not a failure. Maybe not as successful as Sony would have wanted it to be, but it was not bad. Now, I think they are onto something. Yep, just let that sit. Just let that sit. I think Sony has something here. The secret sauce I believe they are missing is named Andrew Garfield.
Yeah,
but
no, this has been said before. Yeah.
An approach to Spider-Man filmmaking that focuses on the villain as the story. The only part of that missing, in my view, is the antagonist being presented as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't care, personally, if you make all of these villains sympathetic. What I want to do is see them fight Spider-Man at the end. And I would love to see a version of this universe where Spider-Man is actively presented as the villain.
Same the way the Bugle does, yeah.
Not even in that way where everyone thinks he's the villain, but in the context of that film, you've got Venom I'm going to use The Last Dance because I saw it more recently, but Venom's trying to save the world, and he's got to protect the Codex and destroy these monsters. And Spider-Man starts saving the monsters because he knows Venom's a bad guy, and you've got Spider-Man was getting in the way and being the problem. And he doesn't have to be evil. You can still have him being quippy and fun, but I like that being presented as a barrier and an obstacle to our hero, our protagonist. Anyway, we're not fixing this. That's not what I'm here to say. But what I am saying is there is something in this. Because for this franchise to last, frankly, the 5 or 6 years that it has is a miracle. And the fact that it's still going strong. There have been so many, and I would just like to run down a few examples of films that they said they were going to make and then didn't make. We had a project that was going to be Black Cat and Silver Sable.
Yeah, that'd be
What was it? Black and Silver, I think they announced as a concept. El Muerto. Do you remember El Muerto?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Remember that was there for a bit. There's been talk of
They
lots.
really hyped that one as well.
Yeah, that was one for a bit.
Wasn't it a wrestling star or something? An MMA star that was saying he was going to play him?
Yeah, it was someone from Bad Bunny from...
That was it, yeah.
Is it Night Train?
No, I'm wrong. It's an actual actor. Whoops.
Well, I think he comes from that background, but he was in... El Muerto is a wrestler.
That's where I'm getting it from.
Not Night Train, Bullet Train. There has been talk for years about a Sinister Six film.
Yeah.
You have the setup with Morbius. I just think it's comical how many ideas they're just throwing on the pot. But you say this is unsuccessful. It makes money. Also, it's growing. Sony is not content with making films for their own platforms. They don't have a streaming service. So they have developed a program, Spider-Man Noir.
Yes.
Which is being developed with Amazon. Will air on Amazon Prime, I assume. And is starring Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir from...
Yeah, because this is what I was going to say. Are you including the Across the Spider-Verse into the Spider-Verse?
No, because then it's an unmitigated success. I'm giving myself a challenge here. If you include them...
I think Morbius brings it back down. And Madam Web.
I think Morbius brings it up from a comical perspective. I think Madam Web... I watched Madam Web and just fell asleep, but I don't remember...
I've not seen it.
I don't remember when I fell asleep. I watched a portion of that film. I think I got to the line... Oh, is it even in it? I've heard that line so much about her mum investigating spiders before. I think they've cut half a line, and it was very upsetting to me because I remember something about.
Oh yeah,
that
very
line.
upsetting. You can't.
I was
even
waiting
remember
for that line. Well, now it's not in the film, so what's the point? The reception to these critically has been not positive.
Well, I think this is also rather interesting, and it's something that I think is a general divide currently in filmmaking in general, because you have a lot of the time, especially the big budget blockbuster movies, are quite often not panned, but certainly get mixed reviews, a lot of negative reviews from critics, but then the audience absolutely love it.
If you consider Marvel a success, and that's not up for debate, that's not what we're arguing today, but if you just say that is, many films here have performed on par, if not, in Venom's case, better than many Marvel films, critically and commercially.
But I do think we need to consider Marvel in this, because I think they've managed to cultivate a general audience that will go to movies. The reason why the Marvel movies are a resounding success, whether they are good or not, they have managed to cultivate a general audience which, if they see Marvel are making a movie, regardless of whether it's actually Marvel Studios or not, they'll go see it. I don't think it makes up a large proportion of the audience, but I do think it probably does enough to give each movie a base level of people going to see it, for then the rest of the people to go, oh, okay, this is doing fairly well, I'll go see it. Oh, okay, people are liking this, I'll go see it. We went and saw Venom: The Last Dance. I had no interest in seeing that movie until I see all other people had seen it, and they were saying, actually, this is fairly good.
Sorry, Venom: The Last Dance. I want to just give a shout out to whatever that weird end montage was, where it plays Maroon 5. And now every single time I hear that Maroon 5 song, I'm picturing Venom. And I don't know why they did that. And I want to say it's bad, but
Well,
I
this is the
remember
thing.
it.
Again,
so
though-
is it bad?
Yeah,
or
again,
are they
though-
just really good at this?
We can sit here and on 50 podcasts turn around and say why this movie's bad, why that movie's bad, and trust me, I want to do a podcast on Morbius just to give me an excuse to actually watch it.
I don't think Morbius is that bad, man. It's really not. I don't like
All right,
Jared Leto much.
Madam Web.
I
But
couldn't tell you.
I do think that regardless of whether people think it's bad or not, as you said, it is, to a greater or lesser extent, a financial success.
Morbius.
Well, no,
this franchise in general.
franchise in general.
It's being,
and the
it's
fact
being
that they're
heavily subsidised by them.
Yeah, the fact that they're making more, I think it will be interesting to see if they continue or if they go, okay, we've got Andrew Garfield. And I think we're yet to see probably... Craven was announced before No Way Home.
Craven was announced ages
Exactly.
ago.
So, like, I'm thinking we're yet to see Sony's slate of movies that were created post the reintroduction of Andrew Garfield. So we're yet to see what they continue to do with this this universe. So maybe we will see a different version of it. Maybe we'll see them tell more stories. But it will be interesting to see without the subsidisation from Venom, because we now assume Venom's going to be over, how this ends up continuing.
What I like, and what I feel is the little golden dust within this is, and this is why Venom stands out, is they went and found someone to play Venom, and they found Tom Hardy to be Venom, and he's spoken about liking the character, and he's spoken about enjoying that role, and he plays the two roles in that film, Eddie Brock and Venom. And I think for all Jared Leto's faults, there's a lot of them. He plays Morbius. He is invested in that role. I wasn't sat there watching Morbius thinking, he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Which I was, for example, in like Joker 2. It felt like a bit of a phoned in performance after the nuances of the first one. Whereas I didn't feel that. Madam Web will ignore, but Craven, from a look of it, looks like it's taken seriously.
I think Madam Web's another good example of that. With that being the case, because by the sound of it, who plays the main character?
What's her name?
But she turns around and
Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, Dakota Johnson. By the sounds of it, in a lot of the interviews that came out, and when she didn't really want to do many interviews, she really didn't sound invested.
Yeah.
So maybe that is exactly what you're saying. The people who champion their character produce a movie that's not that bad. It's just maybe not what a lot of people expected. Yes. But I do think...
I think there's a lot of potential in that idea to go... who's a character everyone wants? I don't know. Dr. Octopus. Now, I don't really want them to put Dr. Octopus in a Marvel Sony film, because then it probably won't be in the MCU. But if you did, there is film potential. That is a character that has a lot of depth and could have a story made out of it. Yeah. But you need to find someone who wants to play that role in that film and understand what it is that they're doing, which Tom Hardy did. He understood the assignment.
Yeah. But
I think the only actor to hop, the only significant actor to hop from the MCU back to the Sony universe, Michael Keaton. I think he understood the assignment of Vulture.
Yeah.
He was there to play Vulture. He wasn't sat there being like, this is beneath me, I'm taking this for a paycheck. He brought everything he could to that role, and I think he is excellent. And I think there is more that can be done here. Yeah. And I think where Fast and Furious feels like it's at the end of it, I think this franchise is at a fork. Yeah. And it either goes down the pan because Venom's gone and, we don't really know what to do anymore. Or it goes, now we've found our feet, now we know what's working, it's actor-driven stories, what do we do from here?
And I think as well, I do think it is a very good argument for the universe case, because I think if you were coming at this as a business, and you would say, okay, well, what's the benefit of us creating all these movies to be in one universe? What I was saying earlier about the fact you had people who were making up a general audience from Marvel, well, that's exactly the argument. You go, well, okay, we say we're creating this universe. People come and see the first one, and they go, okay, well, we're going to... we announce the second one, and people go, oh, we'll go see that because we saw the first one. And then you announce Morbius, and they go, oh, we'll go see that because we've seen Venom, and we've seen Spider-Man. And it gets people to come and see the movie who maybe would have passed it over.
Yeah.
And I think that's where this universe building as a business sense is a good idea, because it will go and fill the cinemas without you needing to. It's like free marketing.
Yeah.
It's, well, we're going to go see it. And a lot of people said about Endgame with this whole idea of you didn't have to do any marketing, you just had to say when it was going to come out.
And
Blank poster, put when the date is, people will turn up, because it was part of the universe. Everyone was like, oh, we saw
We
this.
now need to see this.
We now
Everyone
need
heard
to see
about
this.
Infinity War. We have to now see Endgame. We have to know how it ends.
It's the same argument with the Sony one. It does not matter whether it's a good film or not. Yes, I think it does in a broader sense, but in terms of the argument for the universe itself, you can get good and bad movies in the universe, as Sony sort of shows. You sort of go, okay, this person wants to tell this movie. Fine, you go tell that. We don't care if it's crap or not, because with the universe will survive outside of it. And I think Sony's a good argument for having the duds, because you can have Madam Web and still Venom Last Dance make money.
True.
It doesn't ruin everything.
Yeah. So, I would like to finish on a point which is going to segue to my argument against creating the universe. There is one thing that Sony's Spider-Man universe has done, which I guess Fast and Furious did, but I don't think any of the others have even considered doing. Which is, for the most degree, other than a little Vulture cameo, Sony's Spider-Man universe isn't a universe. Mm-hmm. Because not a single character has crossed over from one of the films into the other, but we all just accept it is a universe.
That's a good point.
But it's not. And I know there's the crossover to the MCU, but I mean, within the films themselves...
You don't know that Morbius exists in any of it. You don't know if Madam Web exists in any of it.
Yeah, we're just sort of assuming they do, which I think is fascinating. Yeah. And I think it is a great way to get people on board while you're starting up your universe. You may be able to see where this is going.
I know where it's going.
Where you make them invest in the characters themselves before you put them together. Much like Marvel did. Who didn't do that?
Who tried to announce and put everyone in a movie at the same time and not give anyone any space and sort of go, and this is this person and this is this person? Who tried to do that?
It was DC. Now, I am going to just possibly blow your minds.
I don't think
lovely audiences, because I didn't even realise how bad this was. I looked at the dates and I forgot that all of this happened in about 2 years. Okay? 3, technically. 3 years, and we blew up an entire franchise.
About to really annoy a massive group of people who are notoriously very angry on the internet.
Probably. But I like most of these films, but it's just
buckle up, kids.
It's objectively bad. Okay. The DC EU was begun by Zack Snyder with Man of Steel in 2013.
He's named him already.
I think it's fine. I have no problem with the films themselves, but you will see where this is going. Now, this is at the time when Marvel had just made $1 billion from the Avengers, and they were on track to make many more, and their films just kept getting more successful. And someone at DC went, why don't we just do that? And then they just literally went, we'll just do that. But didn't think about any of the many years of world building and steps up to that point, and just went, let's just do that. So at some point between 2013 and 16, they announced a slate. Oh, holy Lord, DC have announced a lot of slates. Now, Marvel has moved their slates around, but DC has announced entire slates of films that have never come out. Only Star Wars is probably got a lower hit ratio for announcing projects confidently. Taika Waititi's making a Star Wars film, everyone.
Ryan Johnson's going to do a trilogy.
Patty Jenkins is making a X-Wing movie. No.
That's still on.
No, it's not. It's not. None of them are on. None of them are happening. They clearly just put people in a room and go, here's $1,000. We're going to announce you're making a film. We don't care if you make it, but just here's some money. We're going to announce it. We're right now. I've sent the tweet. I've already tweeted.
Star Wars. I'll give my address if you message us. All right.
We'll actually. We'll make one. We'll actually do it.
You don't have to give us a budget. We'll just do it. Really low tech. You buy the editors. We'll do it.
Pay us a salary. We'll figure it out. We will make it, and it will be better than nothing, because that is what you currently have. You have nothing.
Anyway, back to DC.
DC announced a slate of films for the next 5 years, and it was really weird. They created Batman vs Superman, which is sort of, usually further down the line, but we just launched into that. They announced Suicide Squad, which is a weird thing to go second, but there it was. They announced Wonder Woman. They announced Justice League. They announced Aquaman. At the time, they announced a Flash movie, a Cyborg movie, and that Green Lantern movie. We still haven't...
At the time they announced Flash movie, they did make a Flash movie 10 years later.
Yeah. They announced a different Flash movie. Anyway, so all these films were just announced, and then they had to make them. And then they made some of them. And then Batman vs. Superman came out, and they went, oh no, it only made $874 million. Boo! Zack Snyder, you suck. And then at some point between that and the next year, which is when Justice League came out.
The next year?
A year later.
Was it a year? What?
It was a year and a half.
So these 4-year waits between Marvel movies is not normal.
Sorry, we had a year and a half between two films of a franchise that hadn't existed yet.
That's impressive.
They just said, we'll just do all of them. And they just did all of them. And then they kicked Zack Snyder off Justice League, which was a really bad decision, shockingly enough. Hired a really bad person who made a really bad film, and everyone hated it because it was bad. It was bad in so many ways. Now, I won't defend that one because and I'm not a Snyder Cut truther. I think it's better because it is an objectively better piece of filmmaking. I
think it'd have been better if they cut some things out of it.
Well, yeah, but it's not as bad as weird CGI, just awful. It's just terrible in every way. It's not funny. Yeah. It's just bad. How that man made two good Avengers films and then made that, I have genuinely no idea.
Well, that's the difference between creative process and actually creative ideas.
Just being
he was a director
lucky man
and got given what was going to happen in Avengers. He didn't get...
Anyway, they had a lot of characters they just wanted to shove to the screen incredibly quickly. They fluked a couple of times. I personally think Batman vs. Superman is good. I'm just going to say it. Yep. The Martha twist is actually clever. And if you don't like it, you just don't have any media literacy.
Or know the characters.
But it's actually just good. It's just something new. And it's not maybe the most smart thing, but I think it's nice. Wonder Woman was great. Aquaman was great. Shazam existed. It wasn't offensive. I just don't really care. And then, of course, because they've thrown Zack Snyder out, who had this sort of vision for this universe, everything just sort of went to pot, and everyone was just making it up as they went along, and no one really had a clue. Birds of Prey. We made a Birds of Prey film, but it's Harley Quinn. It's not Birds of Prey. It's Harley Quinn. Why did we make that film? What was the point of that?
Because Margot Robbie was famous and people thought that horniness could get people in seats.
But why didn't they just make a Harley Quinn film? Why did they make a Birds of Prey film? Also, it's called Gotham City Sirens. That is the film they should have made. It's the film they should have made.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 1984, real did that. That was a film that existed.
I'm really upset that Pedro Pascal was in that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. Anyway, those films all made money. Here's some statistics that will blow your mind. Batman vs. Superman made $874,000. Okay?
Hang on, wait.
874 million.
There you
go. Justice League made less at 661. Wonder Woman and Suicide Squad both made... So Suicide Squad made 750. Wonder Woman made 825.
All these budgets were around 200 million, though, weren't they?
Oh, no. They were actually quite frugal. Wonder Woman cost 150 million and it made 825.
Gender pay gap, that is.
Justice League cost 300 million and barely doubled the budget. And then you have Aquaman on 160 million.
What?
Do you know how much Aquaman made?
Go on in.
1.15 billion.
That's the Jason Momoa effect, that is.
How?
That's each ab adds about 100 million.
Yeah. And then they just fell off. And I can't put it any other way because then they barely were making their budgets back. Wonder Woman 1984, which did have pandemic effect, didn't even make its budgets back.
Wow.
The Suicide Squad, which I think is a fantastic film, didn't make its money back. Again, I will accept COVID problems, but still. Black Adam barely doubled its budget. The Flash barely made over its budget.
Probably shouldn't have made that.
Blue Beetle barely made over its budget.
Oh yeah, that exists.
Aquaman and Lost Kingdom.
Oh, what? That's came.
Aquaman and Lost Kingdom came out a year ago.
What?
Did double its budget, but it fell off from $1 billion to 400 million. Now, I don't think there has been a better case of franchise for... well, there's a few, but I think this is just an incredible example of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And we went, Zack Snyder... This is the knock-on effect. This is what blows my mind. Is Zack Snyder in 2016 didn't make $1 billion. He made 874,000, which is what Sony was like, cracking. We'll keep making
more than what the last Fast and Furious movie made.
Yeah, and was considered failure. Get him off the project. He can't be trusted. He's not good at this. And the only one to make that money since was Aquaman. That's it. Not a single other DCEU film ever made as much as a film but was called a failure because it hadn't made $1 billion. Now, if you want to look upon the world and go, karma, that is karma. Because I can't believe, and I didn't realise it until looking at this, that only Aquaman has ever made as much money. If a DC film, James Gunn's Superman next year, has to make 874,000 to top a film that came out a decade ago.
Yeah.
They have had 10 years and have not been able to make the amount of money that they made from Zack Snyder's idea. Aquaman was Zack Snyder's idea.
Yeah.
That was the last film that sort of fell under his vision for the universe. Everything else was after he left.
So, I think when you said you were going to blow my mind, I really didn't expect it to be that. Because, that's nuts. There's no two ways about it. That is absolutely crazy. And I think what it does is it makes a very good argument as to why negative press around a universe has such a damaging effect. Because basically what had happened is it's literally the opposite of Marvel. People were going to Marvel movies because they went, we know Marvel, we know we like Marvels, we'll go see this regardless. And it's almost as if, because even when there were duds, and there were a few, people still went, but it's okay, we know Marvel the Universe is still good. With this, they went, okay, we've had some good films here and there, but that's not going to do anything because what we've done, instead of ruining the film, we've ruined the universe and the person behind it. It's like Marvel turning around and go, Kevin Feige, we don't like... Avengers Age of Ultron was what people consider at the time commercially not very good. Yeah. If they turn around at that point and go, we don't like Kevin... Critically, not very good. If we turn around at that point and go, we don't like you, Kevin Feige, go away. The same thing would have happened to Marvel. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden, that blanket of we know Marvel as a whole, we know DC as a whole, we know Zack Snyder, we know he can produce good movies. So even if this one wasn't very good, the next one might be decent. I think that's where it really goes wrong. I would love to see the timeline where Zack Snyder stuck this out. Because I cannot see any way that it is less successful than it has been. I think one cohesive vision, if controversial, is still better than an uncohesive vision of mess. Yeah. And that is what you ended up with. Films coming out in the same year as films that were entirely unrelated. Everything seems to be trying to be structured around Harley Quinn for a bit. Then they bin Harley Quinn off, and then they go, oh, well, this is sort of successful. Whatever was sort of successful in a film, we jump on it and we latch to it. If Superman, James Gunn's new Superman, next year makes 450 million, that's it. That is a bar that is less or just over the most recent Venom film, which we consider to be, as established, generally quite unsuccessful. It's successful enough to float, but not a franchise starter. If that film makes 450 million, it will be the most successful DC film since Aquaman. That's crazy. If you ignore the second Aquaman, it would only have to make 400 million to be more successful than Black Adam, which was the most successful other film. That is insane for a franchise considered one of the biggest, most recognisable characters in the world. Batman, and so I am excluding the Batman, by the way, because that was a different thing. Yeah. But the franchise, this universe building that they created, I think it is insane that they could not repeat with the success of a film that they themselves said was a turning point and they had to give up on. Which made more, by the way, than Man of Steel, which started it all. Yeah. But wasn't successful enough. But okay, here's the question I have for you then. What about the universe caused this, though? Because I know we're talking about the architect was basically gotten rid of. The architecture went with it. Yeah. And the structure that had been set up, that weird random slate of films that had been announced, went out the window. And while I definitely think that was the wrong way to approach it,
I do think they would have had more success with this consistent vision of universe.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman was incredibly successful. That was Snyder's vision of what Wonder Woman should be. Yes, Patty Jenkins and the writers had that huge input, but it was his DC universe at the time. And I think people forget the influence that he had. He made terrible person Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. For rightly or wrongly, that was his vision. His vision was Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, which I think was excellent.
Miss. That was such a miss. He could have been so good.
But I think he is. I think Batman v Superman is a good film.
But then they don't do more with him.
No. And I think one of the things that happened was there was huge talk of Ben Affleck having a Batman solo film, and he wasn't given the creative freedom to do it after Zack Snyder had left. And I'm sitting there going, look at the Batman. And look at what that did. And you should have had that earlier with Ben Affleck in your universe that you are so desperate to keep afloat. But you didn't want to give away that freedom. And I think when you don't have the architect, you have to have the freedom. Because business people are not very creative and don't understand what is making these projects work. And I think, for rightly or wrongly, in Sony, in the Fast and the Furious, there are creative minds at work.
Yeah.
They are thinking
and there are people
creatively.
spearheading it.
Yes, and working around it. Vin Diesel is probably not the most creative person in the world, no. But he has creativity in him because those films have continued to exist.
Yeah.
They have not died off. And I think this died off because of a lack of creativity. Now, before we move on, there is another chapter coming in this, which is the DCU, which is where James Gunn has taken over the reins of a franchise along with Peter Safran from the business side. And as I've mentioned before, a Superman film is releasing next year. Why do I think this isn't going to work? And this will be an interesting litmus test.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of starting again, James Gunn does the worst creative thing, a cardinal sin of creativity that you're always told to do, is let go of ideas, even if they're really good, if they don't serve the interests of your project. If they don't serve the interest of what you're doing, don't do it just because it's cool.
Or just because, I always wanted to do this.
Yes. Do what serves the project best.
Yeah.
And James Gunn has been insistent that there will be some parts of the DCEU that will follow through. For example, Peacemaker, part of the old set of films, is coming through. Amanda Waller is said to be coming back. I believe she's in Creature Commandos, the animated film. The animated series. She is back, Viola Davis. I love her. But you have to get over it. And you have to go and find a way to start again. If Margot Robbie walks onto set as Harley Quinn, I'm going to lose it. We do not need that. That was a universe, and the problem is there was excellent casting. There was excellent work within it. Elements of it. Excellent. I think The Rock is a good Black Adam.
It was a terribly written movie, that's the issue.
Yeah, I think... what's his name? Pierce Brosnan is a good Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
I think the Suicide Squad, the one made by James Gunn, is a good film. I think Jason Momoa is a good Aquaman. But you've got to let them go. We missed that. That's over. And the idea that we can't let go is what I think will be the downfall. Because people will sit and they'll go, ugh, another one of these incredibly unsuccessful films.
I think that's a good point. Okay, so I was going to make a counterpoint. However, I am going to just quickly agree with you. Because I think that's where the downfall of it being a universe comes in. Because you go, well, here's this character, and you see him on screen, you go, oh, well, it must be connected to this. And we didn't like this whole universe, so we're not going to like this.
Yep.
I was going to make a counter-argument of Daredevil and the Netflix TV shows.
There is nothing wrong with the Netflix TV shows. No one dislikes
and I think,
them.
And
Other than Iron Fist.
But
generally, they are well liked.
This is where my counter-argument was going to go, but then as soon as you said the fact that, I hadn't considered the idea that I was thinking, oh, well, you can't say that you can't bring things forward that existed elsewhere because you can with Daredevil. But actually, if Daredevil had sucked, it wouldn't be a positive on the universe.
Where's Iron Fist? No one's bringing him back.
Apparently there's rumours that they're going to actually keep the same cast for all the Defenders.
Well, we'll see. But we haven't seen them yet, and I think it is telling that we have not seen... Like, I love Jessica Jones. I've only seen seasons 1 and 2, but I think they're great.
Yep.
I love Luke Cage. I think generally there were plenty of good ideas in the Defenders. I think plenty of the casting is good. And I think bringing that casting back isn't a terrible idea in some cases.
Yeah.
I think Daredevil will be treated as the exception. And I do not think anyone who hasn't appeared in Daredevil will come back. I would say they're probably going to recast Elektra if they want her to be a significant role. I think there are some villains in that show that could be played up. I'm not sure if Bullseye's back in this. I think he is. But if he
I think they'll likely make a bigger deal out of him.
You'd expect them to make a bigger deal out of that character, not to diminish what came before, but to go in this universe.
But again, we're in a that's a completely different way because the universe he's coming from was loved.
And the universe he's going to was loved.
Yeah.
And we are starting from scratch. And if you told me you were launching to a new MCU with Iron Fist, people would sit there and go, what? I think if you think about some of the less successful Marvel films, whether you like it, whether I like it or not, Captain Marvel is controversial. She should not be, but she is. If you said you were launching the new MCU with Captain Marvel, that's bad. At this point, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
If you said you were launching the new X-Men and the casting that you were keeping was... I'm trying to think of one of the many bad... Well, like Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique, who is universally accepted to be worse than Rebecca Romijn, I think people would go, where? I have to have her too?
Sophie Turner as Jean Grey.
Yeah, we might want the Patrick Stewarts and the James McAvoys, but then it means you have to have the rest.
Yeah.
And that is what James Gunn is trying to navigate. I'm going to take you, but not you.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to backfire... generally because of the stank of the DCU, which I like quite a lot of. I like the Suicide Squad. I like Batman v Superman. I like lots of films in it. I don't hate Black Adam. I like Aquaman a lot. I like bits of Shazam. But there's so much negativity surrounding that franchise. I think a clean wipe would have been the only way. And I think they should have launched that clean wipe with the big three, not all by James Gunn.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, let's talking clean wipes. I certainly don't think any of these were clean wipes when they decided to try and flush them down the toilet. Let's talk ever so quickly about what makes a good franchise. We're talking a good universe.
I think the best way to start a franchise is tell everyone you're going to make a franchise and that it's going to be really good, and that they're all going to want to watch it.
Oh, they did so much more than that.
And it's almost like DC. I think the best way to do it would be announce more films, get more actors signed on.
Not just signed on, but also do like promotional stuff with them.
Maybe we could do some promo photos with them. And then what we could do is not make any of it.
But do you know what's more ridiculous than that?
Okay.
The fact they did it 3 times.
Okay.
Let's talk about... I was talking quite happily about Universal's Fast and Furious franchise. Let's talk about one of their darker times in their era, including most of it. So, the Dark Universe.
Oh, yeah.
If I just say these names of characters to you, it's just going to evoke historic, legacy, amazing stories.
Yeah, probably.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Excellent.
Dracula.
Probably. That's a good Moffat show.
Frankenstein.
I like that show.
Dracula with an iPad. Frankenstein's monster.
But yeah, there's probably a good one of them somewhere.
The Mummy.
There's lots of good ones of them.
Wolfman.
Probably
Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, I like...
Quasimodo.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera.
Quasimodo. Phantom of the Opera?
Exactly.
Okay.
All of these characters
I'd give
are
that one a miss.
legacy horror villains, horror characters that all exist under the property of Universal's Dark Universe. And the reason why they all belong there is because you had the classic era of movies which were from 1913 to 1956, all in a certain universe, which had 36 movies, all interconnecting, the same people playing a lot of these characters, with a few bits here and there.
And this is what Werewolf by Night from Marvel paid homage to.
Yeah, exactly. And that is basically where this whole idea of having a universe of characters comes from. The likes of what a very personal favourite movie of mine, which isn't probably known to be a good movie, is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which basically tells the other side of this universe. It's all the good guys of the universe teaming up together to fight the bad guys. Now, I think it's a really interesting concept. And do you know who else found it really interesting? Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci.
Can I just ask a question? Because what you've said so far sounds great. This sounds like a role model franchise.
It sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you have then two spearheads.
Okay.
Kurtzman and Orci. The mafia bosses.
Okay, that's a lot.
The daddies of the Dark Universe.
We're going with daddies.
Yeah, that's what we're going with. And they decided in 2013. 2013, you know, you're talking about the hype of the DCEU coming around and sort of going, we're going to
we had a Superman film, we were about to start a franchise.
The Marvel were doing it. Universal, we need to do the same thing. We've got all these amazing characters. We need to do the same thing.
They do.
And these two came on board and went, yeah, you know what, guys, don't worry, we're going to do it. Dracula Untold was already being made. Mm-hmm. And they decided we're going to add a scene at the end of it which kind of links to maybe there being more. So you have Dracula Untold in 2014, where in which at the end of it, he turns up in the more modern day because he gets saved at the end of the movie. He turns up in the modern day and he sees someone who he believes is basically the reincarnation of his wife. Okay. And it's implied that something else is going to happen. And that all came about because Kurtzman, and then already, given this is a year later, Orci was replaced by Chris Morgan, which has the makings of what I would only say is ever going to be a strong and stable leadership. They decide we're going to put some reshoots in and we're going to put this little scene at the end. And then the movie does badly. And I want you to remember this sort of pattern of they come in, they go, we're going to do this, they're going to go really strong and we're going to change this and we're going to make it so that it's the start of something. And then the film does badly, critically. And so they go, oh, no, that wasn't the real start. That wasn't actually what we're going to do. No, we're going to do it in 2017 instead.
Okay.
Which comes around thick and fast with the star-studded Mummy film. Now, in 2017, everyone turns around and goes, "Oh, there's a new The Mummy film coming out."
Yeah.
And if I said
it's
The
got
Mummy,
Brendan Fraser.
oh, has it? That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? No. We're making someone else the lead of it. Well, is it about the sort of like ancient Egypt? Yeah, it's kind of about that, but we're not setting most of it in Egypt, right? Okay. It's going to have Tom Cruise as the lead.
Oh, is he the Mummy?
No.
Oh.
He's just a random guy.
Oh, does he have like a name maybe that people might expect from, I don't know, maybe something like Van Helsing. Maybe his name's Van
he might
Helsing.
be something really interesting. No. He's just a US sergeant. You know, the same person that he always bloody plays.
Oh, just an army guy.
He's called Nick Morton. Nick Morton? Yeah, that really famous.
The famous monster hunter. Nick
You don't
Morton.
know Nick. Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's because shit, guys. We need to do something better. Dr. Jekyll's in it.
Oh, Dr. Jekyll.
Dr. Jekyll's in it.
Tom Cruise or someone else?
No, someone else. Oh,
okay.
In fact, actually, we're just going to announce, and this is where it goes horribly off rail. You know how you're talking about the slate of movies that DC announced, and they went, "Oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to." Well, that all happened and didn't go very well. So in 2017, Alex Kurtzman and Chris Morgan decided we're not going to learn from their mistakes. We're going to go bigger and harder and see if we can fly through the wall when we crash into it with our car, rather than what DC did and just hit it really hard.
Okay.
So they announced with a whole pitch, a logo. They do a trailer. They get Danny Elfman on board to do a bit of a nice little scenic montage with his music.
Okay.
A cast photo, including the announcement of Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Excellent work, love him.
Johnny Depp as Invisible Man. You know that Invisible Man movie that gets made with Johnny Depp?
No.
Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. Great casting. Do you remember that movie?
No.
No.
Good casting.
No. Well, they go in and they go, yeah, we've got these amazing plans and we're going to introduce Dr. Jekyll's in the Mummy film, and it really feels like this movie's building to something apart from its massively forgettable, an absolute mess, and you completely realise whilst you're watching it that no one really has an idea what they're doing.
Oh. That's a shame.
And then something rather familiar happens, in which Kurtzman and Morgan turn around and go, no, that wasn't the real start. And everyone basically turns around to them at this point and goes, guys, what do you mean? This movie was made by you. This wasn't like last bits edited by you. This was made by you. It has to be the start.
Almost exclusively to start this franchise, it was made by you.
And everyone, and they kind of basically went, And you can see it happening in a boardroom where the two of them are sat across the desk from whoever the big CEO of Universal is, and he's sat there, rather angry face, and the two of them are looking at each other, going, "Do we just leave now?"
I think they should leave.
And I think
now.
they do. They do leave. And do you know what's rather interesting about what happens after this?
What, Alex Kurtzman hasn't made another film since?
Alex Kurtzman hasn't made another film since. No, not just that.
Well, he hadn't.
But it's what Universal has done. And it's my argument from the start to the end. This whole thing failed because, as you were saying, they didn't try and build. They tried to have.
Yes.
They tried to go, no, we've got them all here. We're just going to plonk them on the table. That's now it. And it's not been built. It's not been put together. It's just a load of Lego blocks on the table, and you're supposed to imagine it's a cat. It's not a cat. It's just a load of black and white pieces. And basically, instead of building, they just sort of went, this is just what it is. And you've just got to accept this is what it is. And it didn't work. And then what they did is they went, okay, well, we've still got these properties.
Yep.
So we're just going to give them to directors who actually care about them.
Yep.
And we're going to you can have a little bit of money, but we're not going to put too much into it. We're not going to make a massive deal of it. Invisible Man was the next movie to come out.
Yep.
It had a budget, a massive budget.
Oh, yeah.
Of £7 million.
And out of curiosity, how much money did it make from that £7 million?
Now, it doesn't sound like much, but when you think about the fact it was £7 million...
£7 million, that's very low.
144.5 million.
Which means it made not 10, not 20, but 200 times...
No.
Yes? Yes. 200 times itself back. Yes.
No, because 100 would be 700.
Oh, yeah. 20 times.
It's 25 times.
Yes, I did the maths wrong. It was 20 times its budget.
Which is, if you turn around to these £200 million budgets and you go, you made 20 times your budget, that's over what?
I cannot believe that they made that much money. Well, I actually can believe it, because I really like that film.
Yeah.
And I like that film because it does exactly what I personally think Dark Universe should be.
Yeah.
Which is I still want a universe,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. This film is what sells the universe to me, is modernising the villains, but making them all horrifying. Don't make the Invisible Man some kooky guy with bandages around his head. Make it some creep who can physically be invisible.
Yep.
That is such a cool idea.
That's what they've then set out and said that these movies should be. They literally, after Kurtzman left, they literally said, we need to make sure that these movies are modern adaptations. They are these characters in the modern day. Mm-hmm. Dracula's a great story, but there's only so much you can do with it, and it really kind of falls flat when the same character that existed in the 16th century then comes to modern day. And I think that's where it becomes difficult. Whereas if you build them in the modern day and you go, that's what this character is, it's now different, and it's the same essence of this character, but it's more, what would it look like today?
Yeah.
That's where they go well. And I think the one thing I think we can take from all four of our picks is when you have even just a single person, whether it's an actor or a director, who genuinely cares about what they're doing, about what they're producing, not even just a case of what they're writing or anything like that, but the end product. They care about what the end product looks like. you get a piece of film, doesn't matter whether everyone likes it, but that is purpose built.
That
Rather
has an
than
audience.
building a universe, they're building a story. And then you build another story. And then you build another story. And then once all these characters are there, you then go, okay, how are we threading them together? And if you've got an architect behind it, like Zack Snyder was, or you've got a Vin Diesel who goes, okay, here's all the stories. I know how they're going to get to Justice League, but we got to do these steps first.
Yeah.
I know how we're going to get to Venom: The Last Dance, but these two movies have to happen first.
Yeah.
I want Null in the first movie. No, you can't have Null in the first movie because he's too big.
Because you're too big, you got to wait for the third.
Exactly. But they just didn't. They went, we want Dr. Jekyll as well as we want the Mummy because we've got to make sure that people know this is a connected universe.
Yeah.
You didn't have to. Just make two stories and then just say they meet one day.
And that is what happened with the DCU.
Yeah.
They put Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Lex Luthor,
Yeah.
Doomsday, all into one film, all at once.
Yeah.
And there was no breathing room. As much as I respect that film, that was the start, and it was the peak. That was as high as it ever got.
And I think the Dark Universe proves a simple fact that I think so many execs in Hollywood don't realise is it doesn't matter if you get the best cast. They had Tom Cruise, Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, and Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of money.
Mm.
That's a stellar lineup.
Yeah.
And they couldn't make it work for the first film.
Because the people in it weren't invested. There weren't projects behind them. There was just a character and an idea and a hope and a dream.
Of making money.
Of making money.
Not telling a story.
Of not telling a specific story. Because what is the story of the Dark Universe? What should that be? And there might well be one, but I don't think they knew what it was. We have explored 4 different case studies for the case of cinematic universe storytelling. Do you think that cinematic universes should continue? Do you think they are good, bad, something in between? Should they exist? Should they be encouraged or should we be dissuaded? Should we move away from them or towards them? What do you think about them? That is what we want to hear below, and also about your comments on what case studies you would have presented. Other than Marvel, we know Marvel. We did something different. Get over it. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Dream Dynamics. We will see you next time.
See you soon.